A number of things are going on in the world, and we'll be talking about those here on World Edition. We'll see who joins us and all along those lines. But Israel has beefed up forces on the Lebanon border as Hezbollah reports clashes with troops. And so that's something that we're seeing in the news as definitely the IDF and Hezbollah clash in Lebanon, and the U.S. is vowing consequences. So that's something that is definitely going on in the news and around the world. And it looks like a bomb dropped by the U.S. in World War II explodes at an airport in Japan. And that's something that is there in the Japanese part of the world. And runway closed at Japanese airport after a dud shell explodes on a taxiway. So, some of those things that even from past conflicts can still come and cause harm as well. And it looks like Israel has killed multiple Hezbollah leaders, and we'll see how this plays out in that part of the world, in the Middle East, and all along those lines. And Netanyahu is riding a wave of support as Israelis hail the killing of Nasrallah. So definitely that's something that we're seeing as well. And a stumbling Tory front runner is opening a path for more moderate leadership. So four candidates to lead Britain's defeated Conservatives bash Labour and each other. So definitely there are some other parts of the world that are trying to decide their leaders as well. And the October 7th Nova Festival survivor helped authorities kill a terrorist in the Tel Aviv shooting. So that's something else that we're seeing. So 7 were killed and 16 injured in a Tel Aviv shooting and stabbing attack. And that's something else that we're seeing as well that people are going to be talking about in the news. And Palestinian officials say 51 killed in an Israeli operation on southern Gaza. So that's something else that is being reported in the news. And the fall of Volodar is a microcosm of Ukraine's wartime predicament, is what some people are saying, as Ukraine pulls out of the eastern town as Russia grinds forward. So definitely it looks like there is still conflicts going on in various parts of Ukraine and Russia. So that war is continuing as well. And Thai police are seeking negligence charges for a school bus fire that killed 23. And Israel has barred the UN Secretary General from entering the country. Persona non grata, Israel bars the UN Secretary General Guterres from entering the country. So that's something else we'll see as well. And Trump dismisses U.S. troops' brain injuries from 2020 Iran strike, is what CNN is reporting, as he has downplayed the importance of troops with brain injuries, and he's pushing back on U.S. troops' brain injuries from 2020 Iran strike. And he even had a quote of something like they had a headache or something like that. So definitely it looks like there is a number of things going on, including U.S. officials quietly backed Israel's military push against Hezbollah and all along those lines. So we'll see how this all plays out. And Kamani is threatening Israel in Hebrew, and definitely that's something that is going on as well. So we'll see how Iran plays its role in what's going on in the Middle East. So definitely a lot is taking place in the various parts of the world, including the U.S., where yesterday we had the vice presidential debate and all along those lines. So I did hear some of my fellow panelists come in, so I'm going to bring them in very shortly, see what they've got on their mind, what they thought of the debate. I thought that both men were very civil, and as best I could tell, and I'm not going to say that I watched the entire thing, but it did look like it was a lot of draws and gaffes on both parties' parts and everything. So, like I said, in my mind, it looks like it was a draw, and that's actually what I was kind of expecting. But now there is some people that are pushing for there to be another debate between Harris and Trump. So we'll see whether this happens or doesn't happen. I do know that some folks were pointing out different things that were said by both candidates and how that could impact the elections, even though most people I think are thinking it won't have that much of a big impact and all in that way. But we'll see how what goes on. Biden is to visit the region gutted by Hurricane Helene, and I think that's the region around here in North Carolina. As a matter of fact, I am correct as I'm looking at the news story. It says Biden heads to Carolinas and Kamala Harris to Georgia to view Hurricane Helene damage. So definitely that's something that folks are paying attention to as the Helene death toll now at least 166, and Biden will be coming here to take a look at that. And it definitely looks like um, voters are reacting to Governor Tim Walz claiming abortion is a basic human right. And I do know that there are some people that will also wonder about the comments that Vance made in terms of whether Trump had lost the election or not lost the election, and whether he would have certified it. So, like I said, there were definitely comments made by both sides that are getting some pushback and also some criticisms, and all along those lines. So, we'll definitely see how this all goes. And apparently, Waltz stunned the internet with a vice president debate gaffe when he said that he had become friends with school shooters. And in the debate, he says his teenage son witnessed the shooting, and those things don't leave you. So definitely we'll be hearing people reflect on a lot of things in that space. As terms of animals, it looks like the Alaska's Fat Bear Week begins late after the contestant was killed by another bear. So Fat Bear Week returns, and it definitely that's something that goes on there in Alaska, but it was postponed after a fatal bear fight was caught on a live stream, and I think that was caught on yesterday, and all along those lines. And like I said, we did have to deal with Elaine, and it looks like there might be some more weather out in the coast as well, because storm trackers are already looking at Hurricane Kirk, which is strengthening and forecast to grow larger. So Florida is on long range alert for an upcoming Gulf tropical threat. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say, including what folks have to say about some of the immigration votes that were given in the debate, and also the fact of Tiananmen Square, and the fact that it sounds like Tim Waltz might have been in China at the time of that very notorious incident, and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out and what impact it will have on the whole election, because even J.D. Vance was explaining immigrant deportation priorities if Trump is elected. Because I do know there have been some people that have been talking about this notion of a mass deportation and all along those lines. And the climate change also came up in the debate as well. And it'll be definitely interesting to see what folks' reactions are to all of this and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on. And of course, Eric Adams is still going through with his political problems. As a matter of fact, a Polish politician snubbed the New York City Mayor Adams and canceled a tourism meeting recently, and all along those lines. But he's definitely due in court and is expected to ask the judge to drop the bribery charges. And of course, yesterday, Jimmy Carter celebrated his 100th birthday in his hometown of Plains. So definitely a lot's going on in the world and all along those lines. And we'll see what folks have got to say about that. And last but not least, it looks like yesterday a Russian fighter jet flew within feet of a U.S. F-16 near Alaska. So definitely that is something else that we're going to be possibly talking about as well. And last but not least, once again, an ex-Pennsylvania state frat leader was sentenced for their role in the hazing death of the student Timothy Piazzi. So definitely it looks like that is something that goes on, as former Penn State University students Brendan Young and Daniel Casey were sentenced to prison time in the 2007 hazing death of that particular individual, and all along those lines. So, like I said, I'll bring in my other folks. We'll see what they've got to say about the debate, if they watched the entirety of the debate, because I'm not going to say that I did, but there was a lot of people that were there, and I've got Steve Rao with me. I'm sure he was watching the whole debate, and I've also got Rick Rosner, and I've also got the Jacoby. So I'll turn it over to you, Steve, and everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started, because I'm gonna start traveling around the state with the Commissioner of Insurance today to go look at some of the damage. I've got the presidents coming in today. I'm gonna try to attend that EOC briefing later. So it's kind of a quick stop today and with you guys. Real quickly, I just want to give my analysis of the debate. I think that I think it was a good night for Vice Senator Vance. Actually, I think as an objective observer, I think he won the debate. I think he threw a lot of shots at Governor Walz, and Governor Walz didn't really respond. I don't think it's going to really make much of a difference in the election, but I do think he did a good job in his way, kind of summing up: are you better off now than 4 years ago? Are you paying more, for prices at the grocery stores? Even though some of the things he said wasn't true, he did it in a very dignified lawyer way, being a Yale lawyer. And I think that he walked away looking more vice presidential, in my opinion. But I don't think it'll move the needle very much. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the next few weeks, the final push. I think there's a lot of focus on North Carolina. looking like that's leaning towards Harris at this point. And I think if she wins North Carolina, she'll win the presidency. It was a more civil debate. It was nice to see the families get together after and shake hands. Was respectful on both sides, both Walz and Vance. And so that's all I have to say today in my commentary. Today's Gandhi's birthday, so happy Gandhi Jayanti to everybody out there. I'll be talking about his life and legacy this week as we move the statue to Morrisville from Raleigh. And of course, the situation in the Middle East is just getting really, really tough. So I think there's also an argument to be made: is the world safer now than it was a few years ago? Which Vance, kept saying that we're safer today, safer when Trump was in the White House than we are today. And that's really about it. The final thing I'll say is that the disaster in Western North Carolina is just beyond words. I'm going to be seeing it either today or next week when I travel with Commissioner of Insurance Mike Causey. But I'm hearing just horror stories out there: bodies missing, dead bodies in the water, no cell phone coverage, no electricity, no power. Towns completely washed away, storefronts and businesses. So whatever you can do, just go to nc.gov/disaster if you want to contribute. Go to the American Red Cross. I want to thank the first responders, the police, the public works and emergency employees from across the state and country that are coming in. And of course, we thank President Biden for coming here today to Raleigh to then go and have a briefing at the Emergency Operations Center and then also travel parts of the state today. But that's all I have for today, Mark. I'll be back tomorrow for a little longer, but I want to hear what my colleagues have to say real quickly before I take off.
Right. So the debate was weird because they were very nice to each other. Yeah. It felt like a throwback to the before times, except people weren't that nice in the debates in the 90s either. So it was very weird. Probably helped Vance more than Walz because people already knew that Walz is a nice guy. So to see Vance being nice instead of creepy, is a net gain for him. CNN flash poll had Vance, well, it was basically a tie in my mind and in the minds of many viewers, had Vance over Walz 51-49. CBS had Vance over Walz 42-41. So it's about as narrow as you could get. And yeah, I listened to CNN for way too long driving back from the airport yesterday, and they told me about 5 times that VP debates don't move the needle. No. And in a tie like this, yeah, I don't think it will. But what a tweet I liked was said that the big loser in the debate was Trump because of the 4 candidates, 2 presidents, 2 VPs, 4 of them comported themselves well and with dignity. I mean, 3 of them. And then 1 of them was just out of control. So I like that tweet, but that's because I lean away from Trump.
But really quickly and everything, one of the things that I know there's always got some comments about the debate as well and everything. One of the things I've heard people say about the debate is that there was a group of folks that might not have watched the debate because they were actually upset, and this is to you, Rick, and everything, because there's this very popular event that was basically canceled because of the debate, and it'll also be canceled because of the election itself called Dancing with the Stars. So I'm wondering how many people were actually not watching the debate because they would have rather been watching Dancing with the Stars.
Not that many. I have a theory about Dancing with the Stars, where also the weather women in Los Angeles. I think there's a certain Christian segment of the population that doesn't allow themselves to look at porn, and I think they look at Dancing with the Stars instead, and also the weather girls on morning news in LA. We have the richest woman in the world used to be an LA weather woman.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, just tell me really quick, and I did see Kim join us as well, but I know that it's because we tweeted back and forth. But your take, and I think you kind of were thinking like I was, that it was a tie in one degree, but maybe Walz won in substance, I think is what you told me in our tweets back and forth. But what is your take on the debate? And you probably watched the entirety. I'd be lying if I said I watched the entirety, and I'm not going to do that. So what is your take on the whole notion of the debate?
I mean, I did watch the entire debate, and yes, it was a tie. Overall, a statistical tie, as Rick pointed out. The margin of error was 5 point some odd percent in those polls. But yes, stylistically, looking at the way our traditional debates are and thinking about that traditional debate style of a politician, Vance did a great job. He really was very slick, and then Walls was spot on with giving more substantive answers and sounding a lot more genuine in his answers. Because when you're unbound by facts, which there were some key moments within that debate where, for example, when they started talking about the Haitian migrants or immigrants that are in Springfield, one of the actual moderators said that the Haitian migrants are here legally. JD Vance took offense to it and said, "Hey, I thought we weren't going to fact check." So that being a key moment, kind of harmed the idea that, okay, well, I'm this slick guy and I understand what I'm saying, and I'm going to be on all my. No, when you're unbound by facts, it makes it easier to protect and soften the harsh lines of what Trump is, and that was his only job. He wanted to take jabs at Kamala Harris and then soften the hard line that it sounds like Donald Trump is, and he did a good job at that. However, Walz did such a great job at sounding genuine, being on top of his answers, and knowing what he was talking about and wanting to defend his position and defend what we were explaining. Because the problem with the idea or the notion that, because I heard some correspondents talking about, hey, Wall should have been on attack more. Well, the problem that the Kamala Harris campaign is in is the fact that nobody really, she's still getting introduced to the nation. So she has to be able to explain her position. Walz has to do the same thing. People don't know them. They know Trump, they know Vance, but they don't know these two. So they have to be able to explain their positions. So utilizing that time to do that is what they did. Going on attack, you're you're getting back to the idea that, hey, you're not giving me specifics. Well, he gave you specifics the whole night. He answered every single question. Another key moment, which I thought was very telling, is when they asked the economy question, and this goes to where it was talking about giving specifics, and this was every question pretty much. And this is why I feel that they won the immigration debate, because he gave specifics on the immigration debate now. But getting back to the economy question, the moderator said, hey, Walz, you and Harris plan is $1.7 trillion. It's going to balloon the deficit. Walz actually gave a substantive answer, sounded genuine, explained their plan and what they want to do with it. Then it went to JD Vance. JD Vance was asked, the same economists say that your plan, the Trump and Vance plan, is going to balloon the deficit by $5.7 trillion. Vance then went and said, hey, well, Kamala Harris is bad. He never answered the question, never talked about it, but he did what a politician does and pivot and attack the individual that you're going up against. So again, if you're looking for the slickster and everything else, yeah, Vance won. But if you're looking for the genuine and the substantive, that's where Walz won. That's why I think it was a good debate. It was fun. It was polite. It was civil.
So somebody else did a survey that found that only 1% of voters were swayed one way or the other by, to change their mind by the debate. You might get some sound bites out of this. That the Harris campaign already has the part of the debate where Vance wouldn't admit that he would certify the election. That's already part of an ad. The internet is making fun of both of them for things they did with their eyes. Vance gave Walz the side eye whenever Walz said something that Vance thought was bullshit, and then Walz was very nervous And he led to a couple of verbal stumbles, and his eyes got really big because he was very he again, not as slick, but as he got concerned, his eyes got super big, and he looked. Somebody compared his face to the leader of the Heaven's Gate cult 30 years ago.
The funny thing is I got feelings of with Walls. I got feelings of Rob Ford. How Rob Ford was bumbling and he was goofy and that's, I think, a good feeling, and that's who he is. So I think coming out of the debate, the interesting piece, because this was a nice civil debate. Neither attacked each other, neither tried to really tear each other down. As much as Vance coming into the debate went at Walls's military service and all this other stuff about him, he didn't do any of that in the debate. So it felt nice. It felt more a Walls style talk, because that's who we know Walls to be. Very calm, very fun, very jovial. And that was good. So coming out of the debate, how's that going to go on the campaign? Are they going to go back to their same original stances, where Walls is going to be that still same jovial person you saw at the debate, which is going to solidify him being, okay, well, now I see how I like him. Is Vance going to switch back to, hey, Walls just lied. Walls is so bad. Walls is all this, and to defend and be like Trump light, like he has done in his prior talks. So I think that's where, if anything shifts, that's where that shift will happen. But this is
I think that one of the things a lot of people overlook is, if I were an honest person and people were fact checking me, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But they have a problem with being fact checked. And an honest person normally doesn't have a problem with it, no matter how many times you fact check them. In fact, I get fact checked all the time, and people go, oh, you're wrong. And then I make them do the math. And, in front of, hundreds of people, one time I made them do the math. And they came back and said, oh, my God, she was right. So I have no problems when I'm honest and my facts are on the table and I'm telling the truth and you fact check me. But I find it odd that the Trump and Vance team, they get so offended about being fact checked when they should be honored that they're being fact checked, and then things come out that they're honest. It's kind of like the invention I made where it would prove whether one person violated the order or not. People who don't want it, they fear that they're going to be caught doing exactly what they're being accused of doing. And that is what the Trump and Vance people are, they're just in fear of. They're going to be busted for lying, which they are every time they open their mouth. But the problem I have is they're offended by it. They also have a way, and there's a book written about how to do this to convince people to come your way, and they know how to make themselves look like a victim, right? Oh, they're fact checking us again. Instead of people going, well, what problem do you have with that? Oh my God, they fact checked me. Oh my God, why are you fact checking me? I think what they need to do is learn how to communicate with that and say, go ahead and fact check me because I know I'm right. And I mean, that's what I do. And it works every time. But the other problem I have is they just don't seem to answer a question directly. Everything was answered with a campaign, not a real answer to the question. And I think the commentators were getting tired of that. Go ahead, Rick, and then I see.
I just have to say that facts are bastards. I started my TV career as a fact checker, and sometimes you want to get your false facts out there, but even when you're trying to get true facts out there, they can blow up on you. Like in my first TV job, they had to throw out an entire episode of the quiz show I was working on because I forgot that the Incredible Hulk had two different names. In the comic books, he was Bruce Banner. And then they changed it to David Banner for the 70s TV show. And that totally screwed up an episode. I missed it. and it effed over a contestant. And they couldn't even broadcast and then I sued a game show later on because they messed up their facts. So
fact can be definitely interesting. Just hold on a second.
Like I said, fact checking can be wrong too. That's why I have no problem when I'm honest. Like you were able to sue them because you were honest.
Yeah,
but
but
I freaking lost.
I don't care because if you're wrong, I know I'm right. I mean, and that's the attitude I have a problem with when I watch these people is they take such offense to being fact checked as opposed to, hey, let me just prove I'm right. Instead, they realize they're being proved that they lied and they know.
And just to be fair, real quick, Mark. Just to be fair, real quick. When they questioned Walls on his Tiananmen Square piece, and yes, he wasn't there at the exact moment. I think everybody's trying to say that he was there, or that is point out that he was there, or that he even may have said that he was there, and he got called on that, and that was his worst moment of the whole debate because he didn't really give a great answer to that. He actually bumbled and stumbled over what he wanted to say and couldn't figure out what he wanted to say, but then finally caught at the end, well, I misspeak. And that he
also said, I get excited and
And so that right there, again, in terms of going back to the genuine and the politician, if you go to the few lies that the lies that got fact checked on Vance, for example, again with the Haitian immigrants, he jumps down the throat of the individual saying, "Hey, I thought we're not going to be fact checked," and then went at the end, which was a huge moment where he could not even say that Trump lost the actual election, and he wanted to go down some old political road. That takes away from him, from his debate, where he did a great job in debating, but he really sounded like a real politician, and that I think will come back to haunt him as these things get played out, especially like even when he sounded like a politician trying to say that Trump saved Obamacare. He didn't. He tried to overturn it. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that.
I just want to point out that
that nobody gives a crap. It was the VP debate, and it's not going to move anybody.
Exactly. I'll give that.
Hold on a second, but
I give that. But I do want to point out something that I thought was interesting and more commendable on one side versus the other. Is Waltz could admit that he made mistakes. He also continuously said, well, I don't know about you, but maybe we can join together and work on that solution. Why can't we work together on that solution? We should work together on that solution. We did provide a solution for the border. We took it to Congress. We had everything there. The officers on the border loved the solution because it would provide them the resources they needed. But you convinced everyone to vote down your campaign. So I saw a lot of we, and then I saw Vance do a lot of me, we, one side, not let's unite.
Kim, I'll have to get back on you a little bit on that because I did hear something.
I want to say where Walt screwed up, okay? Where Walt screwed up in business, there's a book written on this. I was trained on this. You have to be very careful about admitting you're wrong because everybody sees that as a weakness. You guys might not, but in business and in power, a lot of people and a lot of the middle, Republicans who really support Trump, they immediately grab on any time someone on the other side in opposition admits they're wrong and just says, okay, can we fix the problem? They don't see it that way. They really don't. And I'm how out because I have a commercial to work on.
I did hear some we from both parties, including Vance, and I'm not necessarily a pro-Vance person, but I did hear him say we. And one of the things I've heard commentators say, and I want to pivot to Shaquille because I did watch a little bit of his conversation that he was having in terms of debate analysis with Jamal and the folks there in Australia and everything. But it did seem like a lot of the debate wasn't so much them going at each other, but it was them going after the top of their ticket, meaning that Vance was going after Kamala and Walz was going after Trump. So it seemed like a lot of the debate was more of them going toward the top of the ticket and not at each other. At least that's my analysis and everything. But I was wondering your take on this, Shaquille, as you were watching it and was even commentating from Australia.
So Kimberly has left the show before, as you brought up my name. I have complimentary things to say about both of them, and I have negative things to say about both of them. But I know how sensitive you Democrats are. Would you prefer me to start with my negative comments about the Republicans first, or what would
I have to go work on a commercial, but I'm not backing out because you think that you've got something more supreme to say about me. I just
no, not about you, not about you, Kimberly. I know how sensitive you Democrats are. And by the way, I've got my phone, and if you are wearing, I'm not sure if you're wearing blue or violet, but violet's my favorite color. I'm going to say I really like Tim Walz after that debate performance. I watched that. He looks like the kind of guy you want to hang out with. I really liked his performance. There's been a heap of memes because he misspoke, and clearly he misspoke when he said, "I'm friends with school shooters." That's not what he meant to say. Everyone knows that's not what he meant to say. So the memes came out straight away, and Donald Trump put or rebroadcast that meme. Come on, bro. Like, really? The one that he should have been rebroadcasting was Tim Walz saying, I'm a knucklehead. From my perspective, I've had girlfriends in the past, long-term relationships in the past, and sometimes your girl says to you, why the hell did you do this? Why the hell did you forget that? And sometimes you look at it and go, I've got no real good excuse for that. You reminded me 300 times, and I forgot that thing because I'm a knucklehead. So I actually think that Tim Walz came across as being quite personable. The media says that JD Vance won the debate. I think on substance, he probably did. Yeah, I think he did. But I actually quite like both of them. I said I'm not sure if this was broadcast, but I actually made the comment earlier this afternoon, our time. You know what? I think it'd be better for the United States to have a presidential campaign between those two, because I think that there was they spoke very well. They were very, very polite, and Tim Walz showed a lot of humility actually. Several times when it came to immigration, when it came to a couple of other issues, he looked at JD Vance and he said, I think JD Vance agrees with this. I think JD Vance cares about these issues. And then he went down the partisan line, as he should, and said, but unfortunately I'm paraphrasing, unfortunately he's tethered himself to Donald Trump. And I thought that was great. I think that Tim Walz showed a lot of humility, was very personable. As for JD Vance, look, I think that JD Vance he outperformed Tim Walz. Tim Walz looked uncomfortable. He looked nervous, as he should be. I think any of us would be if we were on that stage. I think JD Vance prosecuted Donald Trump's position in a much more articulate and a much more clear way than Donald Trump ever has. And in a lot of ways, I think many of his, for lack of a better word, surrogates have done, whether it be Vivek Ramaswamy, whether it be Ron DeSantis, whether it be many others. They prosecute the positions that Donald Trump claims to have in a much better way than what Donald Trump actually prosecutes himself. So, look, the debate itself, JD Vance, I think, won. I don't think this is going to change the electoral results very much, but I'm really impressed with Tim Walz. He's certainly grown on me as a result of that debate. And we can sit there and pick apart Okay, well, that person said this and this person said that. What I will say about CBS, though, I think CBS started off being, reasonably impartial. The lady in pink, I think it's Margaret Brennan. When they had that skirmish in relation to the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, I think that was very, very poorly handled by CBS and by her. And I think that when JD Vance wanted to respond to it and they muted the microphone, I think that was quite discrediting to them. But as I said, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. I think people who have had some issues with JD Vance may well be more endeared to him because of his responses and the way that he conducted himself. And I think that people that may have had some issues with Tim Walz would be more endeared to him because of his performance. And I'll forgive the fact that he looked uncomfortable and he looked nervous because, look, lots of people would be.
So I want to just point out one weird thing. JD Vance has a full beard, and we're not used to seeing beards in our chief execs. We haven't seen that in like 100 years. And on him, it actually makes him look like a gentle person, like a good guy.
So Rick, we were joking about that on the show actually, and one of our viewers sort of messaged about my goatee, and I said, "Well, look, I don't know. Can Donald Trump have a goatee? Can Tim Walz have a moustache? Is that going to help?" And I know we're making frivolity out of serious
I think
politics,
it helps Vance. The only other, Ted Cruz has a beard, but nobody likes Ted Cruz.
Yeah,
hang on, that's not true at all. Rick, I like Ted Cruz, and I'll also just point out that the Babylon Bee did they've got a show. I think it's called something along the lines of Californians moving to Texas, and they were knocking on doors, raising awareness for Beto O'Rourke, and they knocked on Ted Cruz's door, and Ted Cruz said he wasn't interested, and he dropped a piece of paper, and they picked up the piece of paper, and it was like the Zodiac stuff, right? So, look, he's got a sense of humour. Look, I'll say this. I've met politicians from all different walks of life, all different political positions. And almost all of them that I've met, have been really nice people. I don't agree with them necessarily, but, they've all been, quite personable people. I think that both the people on the debate stage today had a chance to not just explain the political positions that their parties have, but I think they also had a chance to shine as people. Their personalities got to come out. I think that JD Vance outshined Tim Walz, but I like Tim Walz after that performance. I like JD Vance. Again, not to repeat myself, any further. I don't think it's going to make a big difference, but I think that some of the people that are looking at that are not decided may look at JD Vance's answers and say, that sounds more like what we want to go for. But I also think that there's probably an equal amount of people that are going to look at Tim Walz's answers and say, okay, that sounds more like what I think. So although everybody is saying, and the media is saying that JD Vance won the debate, I think when it comes to electoral outcomes, I think it was a draw.
No,
right. So if you ever get, I think Sasha got disgusted with us and left because we're talking about trivia.
No, Sasha hopefully is still there. He might be doing.
Well, I'm not sure why Sasha's left, but the big news story of the day is the debate, and that's what we're going to be discussing. So,
but also like Israel versus Iran is like a huge freaking and
he might come back and everything. But one of the things that I was going to say that I noticed, and as I said before on other shows, I read a lot of different media, partially because of being here on Pod TV and partially just of being curious and everything along those lines. And I can tell you that one of the things that I observed, Shaquille, is that if you follow the line. And yes, I do think that the media, a lot of the media is going the way that you said it. Maybe Vance won the overall debate, or it was a draw. I've heard a lot of that going on. But a lot of the media that I've been reading has been very partisan, which means that if you read Patriot Pride, it'll say that Vance slaughtered Waltz. But then if you go and read one of the more liberal papers, or one of the more ones that lean to the left, it'll be the opposite. It'll be Waltz slaughtered Vance and everything. Because I think there's a lot.
Look, I said on the show today, before the memes came out, I said on the show today, I hope that Republicans don't make too big a deal out of the comment that I'm friends with school shooters that Tim Waltz said. Clearly, that's not what he meant to say. Like, clearly he misspoke there. That's very obvious, I think, to everybody. And I'm pretty annoyed that came out straight away. If Republicans were going to have a crack at Tim Waltz, what they should be having a crack at him about is his comment where he said, "I'm a knucklehead." Yeah, run that on a loop, run that on your campaign ad, but don't run the "I'm friends with school shooters," because clearly that was just, that came out the wrong way.
Shaquille, but the one you want
right back. Sorry, I did 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
But the one you want them to run and everything, and maybe Jatovia will agree with me, maybe he won't, but the one that he wants them to run could actually have kind of a Simpson-like effect and everything, because the one that they're running is one that their party will definitely go toward and everything, meaning maggots and everything. But if you run something like "I'm a knucklehead" and everything, a lot of people have that kind of like notion just because of popular media. So that actually might be one of those memes that could backfire on you, because it actually could be something that could be seen as something that you want to be seen as a knucklehead if you look at popular media. If you get where I'm going, Jatovia, would you agree with that? That if they run that "I'm a knucklehead" meme, it could actually backfire on them?
Well, I don't think the knucklehead one would be the one to run, just because that doesn't really that hits the demographic that he's aiming towards. I think the one that they would have to run is his answer with Tiananmen Square, because he sounded confused. He didn't really want to answer it, and you could saw it pained him to answer that question. And I think that would be the one that if the Republican Party were to pull out of this, that would be the one to run. The knucklehead hits the, hey, he's goofy like me. It fits that whole narrative that he's already falling into. But yeah, if they do the Tiananmen Square one, which would be the smart one, because that's the where Waltz just sounds like he sounded very untruthful, and that's where it's kind of damning.
The knucklehead comment was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the knucklehead comment was actually in relation to the Tiananmen Square incident. But just to sort of clarify, I'm not suggesting that it's a good thing for them to make fun of him for that. But what I am saying is that if you're going to make fun of him for something, I think the knucklehead comment is more frivolous and more fun than, the memes that have already come out saying "I'm friends with school shooters." Clearly, that's not what he meant to say. And I think that's just, frankly, I think that's just bullying, actually. I think that is akin to bullying somebody who's misspoken, who's made a mistake. And I think that everybody, I don't care what side of politics you're on, he clearly didn't mean to say that. So,
all right, so it doesn't matter much. The debate's over. We'll get a few ads out of it. What matters is, I think, in the next 5 weeks, how much exposure the presidential candidates can get. Harris is going to go on 60 Minutes for an interview. Trump has turned down 60 Minutes, which seems either like a mistake because that's national exposure, or it's like when Biden turned down the opportunity to do a Super Bowl interview at halftime, which made, in retrospect, is probably because he thought he was going to look like shit, or his people did. So is that what Trump is doing because his people think he looks like shit? I don't know, but
Kamala Harris turned down the charity event for the Catholics where they sort of roast each other. I forget the name of it.
Oh, that
Yeah,
dinner, yeah, the cardinal,
the dinner thing that they do. I think Kamala Harris, really should have done that. Look, I think it's gonna keep coming down to the same issue that I believe, and look, I could be wrong, but I believe that Kamala Harris and the Democrats really do need to make a better argument and explain themselves better on policies and what their plans are. Now, I am very aware and very cognizant of the fact that a lot of people say, well, the Republicans and Donald Trump haven't really made a very good argument for what they're going to do. Donald Trump's running on, hey, I did a brilliant job last time. Yes, I know that's debatable. This is what he says. I did a brilliant job last time. All the things that they say that I'm going to end democracy and I'm going to be, the next Hitler and I'm going to be this terrible person. Well, I didn't do it last time. So, I'm going to do this great job. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reduce taxes. I'm going to reduce regulations. I'm fantastic. Vote for me. Whereas with the Democrats, I think that they do need to make a better argument. Now, very interestingly, looking at the betting markets, the international betting markets without any VIG for the bookies, so actually looking at where the aggregate money is and what the aggregate odds are. On the way, when I was in my car service on the way to the studio to do the show, what we saw was that Donald Trump, his odds had actually increased, and obviously her odds decreased. And then during the debate, Donald Trump took the lead very slightly. Then Kamala Harris took the lead very slightly, and that's gone back and forth. And we're only talking about a couple of cents. So, as percentage terms, we're talking about 0.02, 0.03%. That's what's happened in the betting markets. She was currently in the lead before I came onto this show, but she's in the lead by 0.02% in the international aggregate betting markets. So, look, that indicates it's going to be very close. I have said before, I think the polls have underestimated Donald Trump, and so I think that he's going to win, and I think he's going to win by a much larger margin than what's expected. And I could be wrong. 6 out of my last 6 political predictions have been wrong. So, I'm happy to be wrong. That's fine, but that's where I'm picking it. But I do actually think that JD Vance's performance tonight would have cemented those people who were leaning towards the Republicans, who were leaning towards Donald Trump, but weren't 100% sure. I think that JD Vance's performance would have cemented that for them. I also think the exact opposite, that Tim Maltz's performance tonight would have cemented those people that were leaning towards Kamala Harris but weren't 100% sure. So, again, yes, okay, JD Vance won the debate, but I think that in reality, it's a draw.
Well, let's talk in practical terms about the results of the election. Where, say you think that Trump wants to be a dictator, wants to do all this horrible stuff. He won't be able to do most of what he wants to do, horrible or not, because we're going to have a closely divided House again. The Democrats will probably take back the House, but narrowly. So they'll be able to do some stuff in the House, but then the Senate looks to be fairly evenly divided, and the Democrats only have like a 30% chance of taking the House. So we're going to see a lot more stalemate. The only time in recent history that, the Republicans had all 3 things: presidency, House, Senate. They were able to push through the Trump tax cut. They were able to appoint a bunch of judges. But other than that, the last time a party had enough of a majority to get things done was 2009, where Obama, for a few months, had a 60-person Senate majority and the House and the presidency, and he decided the only thing he got done was Obamacare. He decided to put all his eggs in that basket.
So I think, Rick, when you look at the numbers, the numbers would indicate that the Republicans will take the Senate by 52, 53. I think, and again, I'm always wrong about my political predictions. I think the Republicans are more likely to take the Senate by something like 56, 57. That's where I think they're going to be. When it comes to the House, look, clearly I'm not going to go into numbers. I think the Republicans are a shoo-in to win, to win the House. When it comes to the presidency, look, that is a big question. It really is a very big question. It is my view, regardless of policy, actually, and regardless of who people think is, objectively better or worse for the country, it's my view, and I'm on my phone, by the way, so if you guys are looking up the numbers, I don't have the numbers, it's just my view, talking from the heart. It's my view that Trump is more likely than not going to win the election. And I actually, when I look at the numbers, and I expect to be very wrong on this, I actually think that Kamala Harris is going to struggle to hit 200. I think that it's going to be a blowout. Now, we can all argue about exactly what number you need to have in order for it to be a landslide, but I actually think that Kamala Harris is going to struggle to hit 200, and I base it on the fact that I think that New Hampshire is going to flip, and I think that Virginia is going to flip. Now, having said that, there is every chance that she's going to flip North Carolina, especially. There's every chance that if she flips North Carolina, that's going to bleed into a couple other states. And, does she have a shot in Texas? Yeah, she does. Does she have a shot in a couple of other states the Republicans hold right now? Yeah, she absolutely does. But I think that it's more likely that Trump is going to flip blue states over to him than it is that she's going to flip states over to her. And look, that's my view, and I'm happy to be wrong, but that's just what I think is more likely.
Just one thing, because you brought it up on the other show that like I said, kind of did much part of it and everything. I think it was either you or Jamal, and I wasn't sure that I understood it, and I just want to get some clarity on it, because I got the impression that the two of you, or however many were in the room, thought that a Trump presidency would be better for the world in terms of the world being a safer place and everything along those lines. Or maybe but why do you feel that? Why do you think that
absolutely. And to be clear, I think, Joel Jamal, he is Turning Point Australia. He represents or he speaks to an audience which is far more right-wing than I am. I go on there, and as you would have said, I talk about abortion, and I talk about abortion rights and things like that, and why there are significant problems when you make it illegal. I personally feel, and I think that Joel is probably has a stronger view on this than I do. I personally feel that when it comes to the increasing conflict around the world and the increasing instability around the world, I think that Donald Trump is better able to deal with that than what Kamala Harris is. And I think that Americans, when they look at these issues, they look at it from a very insular position. They look at it from the position of Americans. This is one of those situations, as has been the last couple of presidential elections, where the whole world is watching. And the Western world is watching this and going, oh, gee, like what's happening? And many of the positions that Kamala Harris has as a centre-left candidate are very similar to the positions that centre-left candidates in Australia and the UK and Canada and New Zealand and most of Western Europe have. And so it's a similar criticism. Many of the positions that Donald Trump has is very similar to what the centre-right candidates have in those very same countries. I think that there's a general feeling amongst Western countries that we need to move to the centre-right. And so therefore, I think when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to how we deal with the increasing conflict and the increasing instability, who do we best trust? And for all of Donald Trump's flaws, I think the majority of the world, even the Western world, even those people on the left in the Western world that don't like Donald Trump, I think the majority of us would say he's probably the best person to deal with these issues.
Well, I want to go back to the VPs for a second. where Vance, if his team wins, is much more likely to become president because of the incapacity of the president than Waltz is to become president. Because Trump is 78, he'll be 82 if he's by the time he leaves office. And
Well, Rick, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
all right, and frickin', Trump's dad made it to like 93, but had diagnosed Alzheimer's for the last 8 years of his life. So it could happen, could not. But you want to look at who owns Vance, and Vance has been sponsored to the tune of 30 million. Vance comes out of Silicon Valley, and he's owned by a creepy Silicon Valley guy named Peter Thiel, who's what's called an accelerationist. An acceleration.
Rick, I think those people on the left, and I think
so. An accelerationist wants technology to take over and run things, and Vance is deeply enmeshed in that, which is just something that he probably won't become president, but it's something to look at.
So
Toby, I promise you, I'll give you the final word. Just let me very briefly respond to Rick. Rick, I don't think that's actually going to fly. I think that those people that are on the left, who don't like Donald Trump, who are going to vote for Republicans, will hang on to to what you just said. The people on the right were saying that about Kamala Harris and the age of Biden. Okay, I don't think that's really going to fly. But I'll take a step further. I don't think, as much as I've said that both J.D. Vance and Tim Waltz have certainly endeared themselves to me as a human being, I have much more respect for both of them based on that performance. I don't actually think that J.D. Vance, and I've said this before, even prior to this debate, I don't actually think that he's likely to be, if Donald Trump wins, that he's likely to be the presidential candidate or the president in 2028. I don't think that's very likely. So your comments that Donald Trump's getting older and that he may, replace him and that sort of stuff. I don't think
the relative probabilities versus
and I do understand where you're coming from, but I don't think that's going to fly. And I certainly don't think the voters are going to be thinking about that, especially if they're trying to choose between Democrats and Republicans, given that Democrats have made such a big deal out of protecting Biden and not acknowledging Biden's
right, hold on one second. I'm not saying that voters should think about it, but if you're somebody who wants a bunch of shit to think about, which we and talk about on crappy shows like this frickin' thing, then that's one more thing to talk about. If you're a regular voter, no.
Yeah, absolutely. But even on this crappy show, as you've just said,
apologies.
We didn't.
We're fine.
But even on this show, most of the guests that have been on this show, other than myself and a few others, have completely ignored that sort of criticism of Joe Biden. So I really don't think that the idea that J.D. Vance could become the president because of the incapacity of Donald Trump is going to fly.
I take your point. I was just looking for one more frickin' thing to say, but let's let Jatovi finish it off.
Good effort, Rick. Good effort.
Just a couple of things. It is the push that the Republicans made in terms of the age thing and the Kamala Harris being the president. If you vote for Biden, you vote for Kamala Harris. Yeah, that was the play of the Republican Party. I think it served its purpose. It's not going to serve its purpose now. So nobody really cared. The VP, whoever it is, they're not voting for him or thinking that, okay, well, the top of the ticket is going to fall off. So that's more of a misnomer. It is just a fun talking point, but it's not really anything of importance. The bigger thing, when the question was about the world and how the world views it, it's very true. Everything that happens or going on right now, it does affect the world and how people see things. The interviews that I've seen from different world leaders and read about, they do prefer actually the Harris campaign because of the steady hand. The chaos caused by Trump is the problem that I keep hearing and that I've seen in interviews and read about. So because Trump is very chaotic in his situation, for example, the there were leaders in Europe that talked about how Harris and the Biden coalition and all this other stuff, and how they're coming together, and that actual that steadiness was very helpful in a lot of situations, especially now, because I do agree that people have the perception of safety and that view of, oh, well, this and that and the other thing. But I think this is why, again, if we go back and try and harken back to the actual debate and what they talked about at the very beginning of the actual debate, this was the question about what was going on. And that's when Walz tried to say these actual things happened. Vance did a good job of trying to pivot and say that we were all safe and so on and so forth. And again, Vance did a great job in terms of being a political debater. But what Walz did in his genuineness did point out the issues that were going on that get ignored now because of our romanticizing of 4 years ago and forgetting about the bad and not thinking about the actual realities of the situations. So to get back to the point of, yes, the world is split on who they want. The majority seem to want Harris more so than they want Trump because of the chaos. And I know you don't like hearing that, Shaq, but I can bring up the interviews that talk about it.
Excuse me. Don't say what I do.
We are at the top of the hour, and I hate being that bad girl commentator that mic'd everyone last night when they overtalked their time. But unfortunately, we have to say goodbye because we have other shows that come on after this. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll continue this conversation, I'm very much certain, tomorrow. Have a great day.